Yay!
Hey everybody, I'm D.Lisa West. I am a dream doula.
And I am Christina Spitaro. I'm a psychotherapist and relationship coach.
Today we would love to talk to you about something that's on our hearts, and that
Mhm.
is, how do you live in joy?
I like
How
it.
do you? So many people, so many wisdom teachers say, do what you love and the money will
Mhm.
follow. Wasn't that a book in the
Mhm.
80s?
Yeah.
We're here to live in love and joy and create a world that everyone enjoys. Yet, if you look around the planet, there are people like worried and hurried
Yeah.
and doing jobs they despise because they need to buy food. So,
Yes.
how can we live in joy and also have the things we need to live with, like money and food and clothing and shelter?
Right. I think that is an excellent question. And by the way, for those watching, we can't promise you we will give you definitive answers, but maybe we can give you the beginnings of a roadmap.
Right on. Good, good. Thank you.
Disclaimer.
Disclaimer, your life will be interesting if you listen to us.
Yeah.
I guarantee that. You'll be
Very.
thinking about something we said, and then you'll be like, oh yeah. So I've had times in my life where I was really joyful, but I
Mhm.
would have to say I use the Insight Timer app to time
Mhm.
my meditations now, and they ask you, what's
Mhm.
your mood? On a
Mhm.
scale of 5. The middle is neutral, and then there's a little bit unhappy, super unhappy, a little bit
Mhm.
happy, super happy. And I haven't ever clicked on all the way happy.
Mm.
I'm mostly, if I'm realistic, I'm neutral or a little bit happy or a little bit unhappy.
Okay.
And there's also that idea that people have kind of a set point of how happy they let themselves be.
Mm.
So how can you be joyful if your happiness set point is like wah wah wah?
Yeah. It's also understanding yourself to understand what actually makes you happy. Because
Do you find that people don't really know what makes them happy when they come to work with you?
oh, yeah. I
Mm.
mean, I think sometimes they have an idea, but I think it's like we've talked about before. When you've had this programming in your life where you've been told the shoulds,
Mm-hmm.
and when you're not living up to the shoulds, then you're told, well, you shouldn't be happy, but are those shoulds really you? I've read so many things and seen so many things where people who just like embraced who they really were, like when they got rid of all the coats that others forced them to wear and just went back to what they felt,
Mm.
then they actually felt happy. They felt content. So the idea is, when are you at your most peaceful? When are you at your most calm? And don't say when you're asleep, because that's a cop out. Yes, you can be peaceful and calm in your sleep. I will grant you that. But when are you most peaceful and calm? When you're physically awake.
Yeah, and what do you love doing? I've asked that
Yeah.
to some adults, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know."
Mhm.
So, what did you love doing as a kid?
Yes, exactly.
That sometimes gives you a clue. Although, when someone asked me that recently, I was like, "Well, I liked playing in the sandbox." How does that relate to adult life? I'm not quite sure, except I was dreaming up stories. I was imagining
Mm.
things. So I was using my imagination. Guess it was fun to play in the sandbox and have these imaginary farms where I had horses and
Mhm.
fences and they jumped over the gates.
Mhm.
It was creating a story and another thing that wasn't real right then,
Mhm.
which was
Mhm.
the fun part of it for me, which is also I love to make art. And that's kind of similar to that. I mean, coloring with crayons, sure, I did that
Mhm.
as a kid.
Sure.
Now I color with big crayons as an adult.
There you go. And art is definitely storytelling. You're telling a
Mhm.
specific story through your art. And I can
Mm.
relate to that because I was a storyteller too. I loved making up stories, using my imagination, playing with my dolls and my stuffed animals. I could make anything talk. Like, I would love to just make things talk, make them interact, and I had whole little plot lines going with my stuffed animals and my dolls, and each one had like their own personality and character, and in a way that kind of mirrors what I do now, because as you know, I'm a therapist, so I love talking to people. As a coach, I love talking to people and hearing their stories and helping them come up with new stories for their lives, coming up with
Mm.
possibilities of what could happen. And I did that as a child when I played. I'm still a writer, so I love to write. So yeah, my favorite activity was storytelling,
I
and it
love it.
still is.
Which weaves it into your livelihood as well.
Yes.
Because I remember when I first heard, like, do what you love and the money will follow. I first heard that in the 80s. I was like, really? I could be an artist?
Mm-hmm.
Um, maybe I could have been an artist in the 80s. I didn't believe it then, so I didn't do it. But
Mm-hmm.
that's the other part of this whole concept, is that if we're living a joyful life and if we're
Right.
really feeling love and joy, we are living our true purpose and we're having a beautiful life. There might
Yes.
be a part
Yes.
of you that says, wait, oh, this can't be good. I'm too happy.
Mm-hmm.
Life should be harder than this. I have to try really hard at work. Otherwise, I'm not a
Mm-hmm.
good worker. So we
Mm-hmm.
have all these false beliefs that are in
Right.
between our joy and happiness and where we are right now.
Absolutely. I think it ties right into those shoulds, right? That work should be hard. And I'm
Mm.
not saying it isn't, but you don't have to be miserable. And even if this is where finding those things that are joyful. Let's say, okay, we're being very realistic here. You got to pay the bills. Maybe you have a job that's not your love. Fine. But what are you doing when you're not doing that job? Are
Mhm.
you making time for things that bring you joy? And then people say, oh, but I don't have time. I work so many hours. How much time do we waste?
Oh, yes.
How much
Yes.
time do we waste scrolling? How much time do we waste going into someone else's world when we're watching either maybe somebody on YouTube showing their life, or we're watching something? How much time do we waste watching somebody else live what they're viewing as their best life instead of figuring out what is our best life?
Yeah. And when you mentioned should, I heard somebody years ago who was really into linguistics and the words that we use. And
Mm-hmm.
she said, don't should on yourself.
Oh, I like it.
I know. Don't. So when you hear yourself say, I should, oh, I choose to do this,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm enjoying doing this, but not I
Mm-hmm.
should do this. Who says
Yes,
that? That's a message from some parental
exactly.
part of your brain, right? You better do
Right.
this. You
You
have to
better
do
do this.
this. Everything we
Mm-hmm.
do really is a choice. Even if we
Yes.
say it's not a choice, we can choose to do it well or do it poorly, and choose
Yes.
to do it resentfully or not.
Mm-hmm.
We get the choice of how we react to life.
Yes. Yes.
And yeah, are we working so hard? I love that idea too, that we're spending a lot of time comparing ourselves to others on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it must be very, very difficult for young kids right now growing up with Instagram and TikTok and all the false happiness that they can see.
Yes, I think so. You know, I have recommended to more than one client get off social media for a little while because it's upsetting them to look at some of these things. I'm like, you don't need to look at someone else's life. Create your own.
Do they do it?
I have had clients who, when they've gotten off social media, actually do feel better. They're
Mm-hmm.
like, I haven't. I stopped look. You were right. I stopped looking at that. I stopped doing. And I know when I stopped comparing myself, I did feel better. It's not easy because obviously we need certain things. Talk about work. We may have to do like certain things for work where we need to kind of be engaged a little bit. But here's the thing. It's okay to engage with it, but remember, and I've said this so many times, what you're looking at, I don't care where you're looking at, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, YouTube. It is a curated moment.
Right.
Some of them might have an honesty moment where they're showing you the difficulties, but it is still a curated moment. So everyone's got bad days. Everyone has doubts, fears, sadness. This is part of the human condition. So contentment is kind of trying to find as many moments where you're truly connecting to yourself and what you like as you possibly can.
I remember as a kid talking, wow, this is tripping me out so much to think about it. Talking to the neighbor, his name was Herb.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying, isn't it terrible about the blah, blah, blah? And I don't remember even what I was talking about, but I was talking about somebody's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you never know what their relationship is like when they're home alone. No one knows.
Nobody knows.
And I took that as a positive comment, but now I know, now that I know his story, I was like, there's a dark way to hear that too. You never
Exactly.
know. Like people might be pretending to be super happy and joyful, and in real life they go home and they're just binge eating, watching a lot of TV, and they're sad and crying.
Absolutely. I mean, we don't know. And this
Mm-mm.
is the hard part because we already, as human beings, are social creatures. So we already had a tendency to compare ourselves to others, whether it was TV or magazines. And social media has just made it worse because now we have the illusion that we think we actually know this person's life because they are doing a video journal or they're doing something else. We actually have this illusion of, oh, I know what it's really like and why is it so easy for them and so hard for me.
Yeah.
You
So
don't know.
are you on social media? How much time do you spend on social media yourself?
Oh, I am horrible. I know they say you should do this for business. I am terrible at social media. I do have a Facebook business page and I do check on it. And when people have followed it, I thank them and ask them to like. And then Instagram, I've tried to post. And then the last time I tried to log into it, I couldn't get in with my password. And so then I tried to do that password recovery thing. I put in the code and then it still wouldn't let me in. And I was like, so I just got annoyed and I'm like, forget it. I'm reading a book.
Good for you. Oh yeah, I have gone down the social media rabbit hole so deeply. I'm way down there with the rabbits.
Mhm.
I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Instagram. I have a Pinterest page, but I never go there.
Good
And
for you.
I think I'm a Twitter person too, but I don't
Yeah.
go there either. And for a while, I had multiple Facebook accounts, and I
Mhm.
decided that I didn't like Facebook, so I'm off. I feel a little bit like a Luddite when I tell people I'm not on Facebook. They're like, join
Mhm.
my Facebook group. I'm like, oh, I'm not on Facebook. And it makes me really happy because I used to waste hours every day looking
Mhm.
at Facebook, looking at Instagram, because of course you could just go back and forth on your phone.
Right. Exactly.
And next thing I know, an hour's gone by and I haven't done anything except look at other people's pictures of stuff. Why?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So and again, this is about, and look, it's about figuring out what makes you happy, what brings you joy. And as much as you can, as often as you can, do that. Now,
Right.
if it brings you joy, go to people's lives, okay, but does that genuinely bring you joy? Fine. I'm not judging. If that brings you joy, go ahead. But the key is that really? And I love what you said about what did you like to do as a child?
Yeah.
Because when we're kids, and this is why I love the purity of it, when we're kids, before somebody got to us and said, "Oh, you shouldn't be doing that." Or, "Well, what are you doing?" "Oh, you're making a mess. Don't make a mess." Before somebody got in our heads that what we were doing was not good, just think about kids who splash in rain puddles, right?
Oh,
Or
yes.
now, I know this sounds hypocritical considering what I just said. There was this adorable YouTube video that came out, I wanna say it was the beginning of the pandemic, this little girl, 101 things to do during lockdown. It was adorable, like count blades of grass, um, put on a play with your fish. It was the cutest thing, and it literally was all these things that she did around her home. And I thought, "Oh my goodness, if adults could just kind of tweak that for themselves, you can have a dang good time."
Yes, absolutely. The other thing I was thinking about recently is how I have these friends that some of them I've never met in real life.
Mhm,
So unlike people I follow on Facebook or Instagram
mhm,
or those kind of things, I've been in these two different mastermind groups
mhm,
where once a week we get together and we help each other with whatever it is that's on our
mhm,
mind. One group
mhm,
is for coaches, and so we talk about our coaching practices and what we're up to,
mhm,
and practice saying things that we might say to
mhm,
somebody
mhm.
and say, oh, you could say that a little bit differently or try it this way or that way. I just feel so much affection and support from these people who I've never actually
Mhm.
met except on Zoom.
Mhm.
One of them I met because we went to an event together. And so I said, this is
Mhm.
what I'm wearing. I know
Mhm.
what her face looks like, but I hadn't seen the face attached to the whole body.
Mhm.
And so it's so fascinating. And I think this is a experience that more than one person is having in the world right now is you've met
Right.
someone on Zoom, you've had long conversations with them, maybe
Mhm.
meetings at work, and then you see them in real life, and you're like, oh, you're so tall, or oh,
Yes,
you're so small. It's so interesting to see the
it
rest of
is.
them. That's
To
not
see the rest
just
of the
this.
body, I know. It is really interesting, isn't it?
It's
Because I
fun.
also there are people I've literally just known through, Zoom.
Yeah.
And then when we have gotten together and I've seen them in person, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is what you look like in real life." And for a minute or two, you almost don't recognize them because you're so used to the screen and you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, okay, wow, that's you."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
one or both of you may joke, should we go like this to like, yeah, it's me.
Yeah. Let me put my face in a frame and that'll be easier. It's
Yeah.
so it's yeah, it's fun. Now it feels like the whole COVID thing is easing. There's still people wearing masks here and there, but it feels
Mhm,
like people are kind of coming out and meeting in person again
mhm,
and doing joyful things. And so
mhm,
last night I went to because I'm an artist and I said to myself,
mhm.
hey, there's a life drawing thing once a week here. Why don't I go to that?
Nice.
So life drawing is a live model, an
Mhm.
artist drawing the model. And I went there with cardboard to draw on. And I was thinking, no pressure. It's not, I mean, that kind of drawing is just to practice being in the creative zone. You
Mhm,
don't really get anything frameable out of a 3 minute pose or a
mhm.
20-minute pose, but it's fun and you can, practice making shapes and then I can throw it away.
There you
And
go.
I felt so happy when I came home. It was really great.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So what have you done lately that made you feel joyful and happy?
What have I done that made me feel joyful and happy? Okay, I can't help it.
Movie. I've got
Yeah.
one.
Come on, you guys know me now. You know me any kind of time, you know me. So I was actually, and the funny thing is, it actually helped with work because I'm terrible with my blog. I've been doing my blog on my website, but sometimes I'm not great about updating it a lot. So I was watching some movies and then I fell down the YouTube rabbit hole because people have uploaded the old Siskel and Ebert movie reviews.
Oh
Okay,
God, I love those guys.
I know. So somebody's uploaded practically all their things. So if just Google Siskel and Ebert, you will see practically all their reviews. It is so cool. So for those of you who may not know, okay, these were two people who were movie critics, and they basically had a show in one incarnation or another. It started, I want to say, 1970s, maybe 79. Now I was watching them in the late 80s, 90s, but they started like in the 70s all the way up to 1990s. And sadly, they both have passed on. Siskel passed first, and then Ebert did. And Roger Ebert actually won, I think, a Pulitzer Prize for movie criticism, because if you ever read his reviews, and you can find them online, just really, like, these were two men that really appreciated movies. Now, you may not necessarily agree with them on all the reviews, but you cannot deny they were thoughtful, they were introspective, and they really valued the art of cinema.
Yes.
And so Roger Ebert famously said that he felt movies actually help us to be empathetic, which I thought was really interesting, because movies, we can't have every experience ever. So basically, when we have a movie they were showing someone's experience, then we can have empathy for that experience without necessarily having had lived it. So I thought he's actually said something like movies are like an empathy machine. So it sort of inspired me, and I kind of had that idea in my head. And then I had seen a couple of movies that I'd seen before, and I just did, I mean, they just popped up. So one of them was Hanging Up, and one of them was Nothing in Common. So Hanging Up was with Meg Ryan, Lisa Kudrow, and Diane Keaton. And it was from, I want to say, early 2000s. And Nothing in Common was from 1986 with Tom Hanks, Jackie Gleason in his last role, and basically, and Eva Marie Saint, who played his mother. The premise of both films was taking care of a parent, an adult child put in the role of taking care of a parent. Now, when I first saw these movies, I was not in that role. And now I have experienced that role. And I wrote a blog post, therapythroughmovies.com or spaterocounseling.com. That's on both places, where I said, do movies make us more empathetic, or do they prepare us for what may come later, kind of a thing? So the idea that, that was my thing. Like, I love diving in and revisiting movies I'd seen before, and seeing, like, if do I have a different perspective now that I'm older, or now that maybe I've had experiences now that I didn't have when I was a kid seeing this movie for the first time.
Yeah. Because if you're a kid and you're watching a movie about an adult taking care of their parent, you're like, whatever, grandma.
Right, right.
But if you're an adult who's ever had the distinct honor of helping an elderly parent in their illness or in their preparing to die time, it's profound.
Yes,
It's
yes.
truly profound, and there's no other way you can get that experience.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So just that idea, that is something I enjoy. I truly do appreciate, just, and it's funny because all my friends who know me know that, yes, Christina's a movie buff. We know this.
Yeah.
And so I was watching a movie with a friend, and they were seeing themselves in this movie, like, oh my goodness, that's just like that experience I had, an experience I had. And I'm like, and this is not some, I mean, they like movies, but they're not like me loving movies. And I'm like, you see what I mean? You see what I mean?
I love it because most of the movies you talk about, someone can find them online and watch them for free.
Right.
And you don't have to go to the movie theater. You don't have to buy the popcorn, although you could buy the popcorn and watch the movie at home.
Mhm.
It's so fun to just let yourself fall into that imaginary zone and be in the story. And,
Yes.
and yeah, you might relate to one character or another character, or maybe none of them, and you're just watching the story, but it's so much different than just daydreaming.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. Okay, so for you, movies are joy. For me, making art is joy.
Hmm.
And even if you can't do what you love to do joyfully at work, you can
Yeah.
sure as heck do it on the weekends and evenings. Go
Hmm.
find your joy, people. Go find your
Yes.
joy and see how much that transforms how you're living.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for listening, people. And feel free to follow and like and give me a review. And in the show notes, I will talk about hanging up, nothing in common, and therapy through movies where they can read your review.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks, Christina. Nice to see
Thank
you. We'll
you.
talk
Nice
next
to
week.
see you too. Talk next week.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.